Welcome to the Beautiful Step Podcast,
where we
run,
stomp,
tiptoe,
and tango into the confusing
but beautiful
world of togetherness. We are your hosts, Kris
and Charity.
Now, let's go make our together even better. Gorgeous. One word for you.
Ah, so nice. You like my fun pink scarf? I was trying to match
beautiful.
your great shirt that I love so much.
Nordstrom's Rack.
Oh, bargain hunter.
Yeah,
All right.
bargain hunting. I did what you do in that I tried to tell you what price it was. I didn't say what price it was. It was like only $19.
Oh,
But you do that every time.
yes.
Here's how much
I
it
like
costs.
a deal.
Yep.
I like a deal.
You love a deal.
It's something I value.
Okay.
So today we're actually going to talk about negotiating.
Ooh.
Speaking of deals. So we did a podcast a couple times ago about how to get what you want when somebody's being a jerk.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah, I totally remember that.
And so we thought what would be a fun follow-up is actually tools on how to get what you want with your partner.
Okay.
Like keys to negotiation.
Like you have individual things that you want to accomplish, but then there's this like common goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
I get it.
Or just, hey, I've got stuff I'm trying to do and I need to get you on board, buddy.
You have a way of doing that.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fairly decent negotiator, I think.
You are.
So are you.
It's just because I give in all the time.
Aha.
Right.
Not true.
You don't think so?
Not true.
I think it's true.
No. So, but one of the things I do love about you, and so I want to get into this topic by bringing this up because I think all men listen.
What?
Actually, all partners listen. This is something Kris does really, really well that I think if I were to stack it up for all my friends that have partners, they would say, wow, Kris is really good at that. I wish my partner did that.
I'm dying to know what this is.
Okay, you ready?
Go.
It's that you let me totally vent, and then you'll take my side every time. So
is that a beautiful thing? Is that what all women want?
Yes.
Okay, I just got sexier to every woman on the planet.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
you were already really sexy.
Okay,
but,
I got you.
okay.
Okay.
No, so this is something you're really good at. I don't know if it's because you had a sister, but you intuitively know this. So if I come home and
not only did I have a sister, but I had a sister that had friends over all the time.
Right.
So I know how women think. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it down.
Yeah. Well, and with me, you're really good about it. So like if I am upset about something or needing to process something, I'm somewhat of a verbal. I'm a verbal processor.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a verbal processor. So I'll need to talk about it. And some people, some partners make the mistake of like feeling like they need to fix something if the other person's venting or like trying to be the devil's advocate. Can I just say right now, never, ever, ever when your partner's venting about something or something someone did,
right,
be the devil's advocate. That's not your job. That's not your
Ooh,
role.
good.
Like warning, red lights. Don't do it. Don't do it ever.
Why?
Because it totally invalidates what you're trying to do, and you're going to your partner
hoping, as the person who's venting.
Yeah, you're going to your partner hoping like I know my person. We're going to be on the same team. He's going to back me up, even if I'm totally wrong. Like I still want to know that you're going to be like, let it all out. I agree. Yeah, you're right. She's a total bitch. Like I can't even believe he said that. Blah blah blah. You're gonna do that with me all day long.
Yes, 100%.
And I gotta say, it makes you way sexier. And like,
I like how this isn't like this makes you, intellectual. This makes you, emotionally intelligent.
It does that.
This makes you straight up sexy. And I'm like, okay, guys, listen up. Okay.
Okay, it does those other things too, emotional intelligence and all that. But I think the sexiness factor, honestly, just because I value. Because I'm an oral processor, I value being heard. I actually think everybody across the board, whether they're whatever kind of processor they are, they value being heard.
Of course. And can I just say something about your verbal processing?
Yeah.
You're pretty cute about that.
I am?
Because you say a lot, I don't want to talk about it. No, it's fine. I don't want to talk about it. And then a half hour later, I'm still eating popcorn. Just like it's like I'm watching a movie, listening to you vent.
Hey, you do the same thing, though. You do the
I know.
The same thing.
I don't need to talk about it. It's fine. And then, seriously, a half hour later, you've said yes about 50,000 times, and you've agreed with me, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. So there's something really key. And in when you're with your partner, that you have a safe place to go do that, to process, to go vent, and that person kind of commiserates with you.
And you're saying if you're the deadbeat advocate, if you're the deadbeat advocate,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's better.
Oh, yeah, that is, yeah.
If you're the deadbeat advocate, then you're, in a way, you're not safe.
No, you're not a safe person to talk to. And I'm not saying like you always have to agree with your partner, but when you know that they just need to vent
In that moment,
need to
you
process,
do need to just...
You just need to suck it up and be like, you're right. I can't believe they did that. Like, oh, I hate her too. Like, you need to do all that shit. Like, do all that.
100%.
So it's really key. And I would say you do that really well. And I find that when I talk to some of my friends, when their partners don't do that, they don't feel heard. They don't feel safe. And I understand the reason, because when you're listening to your partner vent about something, you totally know them and you probably know the situation and you're probably like, they're kind of wrong about that. Like, she probably wasn't that mean about it. It probably went down a little bit different.
Sure.
But it doesn't matter. In that moment.
Let them have it. Let them have it.
In that moment, that's not the time to that's not the time to be like, saying all the things that they need to be corrected on. That's not the moment for that.
Exactly. And you know what I think? Okay, so there's a huge theory behind this.
Okay, yeah. Go.
And it is this whole idea. We talked a little bit about it in a podcast previously, but it's this idea of a common enemy.
Yes.
And what happens when you can create a common enemy? Okay, first of all, a common enemy is a psychological, socio, even spiritual phenomenon that has been with the human race for
ever.
Like ever since, humans were humans. Humans get together and they create a common enemy. And the reason why that they create a common enemy is because if you have a common enemy, you have solidarity within the group.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And you have camaraderie within the group who hates that other.
Yeah.
I'll just say other, whether it's a person or like religion does it really well.
Oh, yeah.
And they call it Satan. Like, you know what I mean? Like Christians have Satan
or
as the
sin,
common enemy.
or
sin.
Yeah.
And what happens is then there's all this really, really deep intimacy within those people who have that same common enemy.
Yeah. And it actually is referred to as that, like common enemy intimacy.
Oh,
like,
really?
That's a thing.
Okay.
That's a term.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we're doing it, like, well, I have tattooed on my foot, you and me against the world. It's always been our saying.
Yeah. I mean, how deeply intimate is that we have this common enemy about anything against us shall not stand? I mean, isn't that a Bible verse? Right,
Any
exactly.
threat.
And so I guess the beauty of it is that it does create camaraderie, solidarity. It creates intimacy.
Yeah.
And then the downside, though, right, is when you have, say, like a family structure.
Yeah.
And you have, I think the psychological term would be a scapegoat within the family or a black sheep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
So you have a person who in the family is, just a screw up, or they're doing something bad,
or they're just they're in opposition to the rest of the group,
or they're in opposition to the rest of the group, whatever it may be. What happens, the really dark side of this is when a family comes together and they create a common enemy out of that other family member.
Yeah.
And let's just say it's a family of 5, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the 4 of those people seem to get more and more intimate, and they seem to get more and more connected on trying to fix this cause or be against and kind of like figure out all the things that this bad person is doing, and we're so glad that we're not like that. And what I mean? That's the
othering language.
Exactly. That's the really, really dark side of creating a common enemy.
Yeah, so it's a very valuable tool when you're starting negotiation, because unless we feel like we're on the same team, we're not going to get anywhere.
Like we're fighting the same fight.
We're going towards a common goal, whether it be our relationships improved, or we have something that we're working towards, or like making our love last, or any of that stuff.
But what a broken way to create intimacy. I think there's some real brokenness to create intimacy by simply having a common enemy.
Yeah, I think you have to, but it is one of the factors that you have to create. It really, I do think there's such value for us. There's been a lot of value in this whole mentality of like, it's us against the world. Anything that's coming at us, we're going to view as a threat against not me, not you individually, but like we're going to view as a threat against us.
Right.
And
it does get dark though when the common enemy is an actual person.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
and it can become toxic.
And what happens is then, I mean, how do you ever get back?
Right.
Once you have the common enemy, I mean, you got to go through some really deep forgiveness and,
Yeah.
extending trust and all that kind of stuff we talk about. But that's why I say that this is a fabulous tool, but it's also a dangerous one. And I would say for people who maybe haven't recognized this, hasn't come online in their conscience yet, to say to themselves like, wait, have I just are we just creating this common enemy here? And so now the most motivating thing is sort of hate in us. Like, and that's the thing that's binding our hearts. You really do need to check that out. I think that was why I wanted to bring that up, is because yes, it's powerful, but it's also, it can be just so dangerous.
Yeah. It has lots of pitfalls to it. Pitfalls to it.
Pitiful pitfalls. Pitfall.
Yeah.
Pitbull pitfalls.
Yeah. But to recognize the threat, and that's one of the things we've had to do is go, okay, what are our threats? Like for our relationship, we've always been very honest about like, okay, we see threats as like super, when you were a pastor, it was like, okay, number one threat is going to be like time away, time apart and not being on the same page.
Good point. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
But a second, another really common threat would be like super needy women who are like attracted to authority and male figures who will listen to them.
Man.
So like I could see that from a mile away and be like threat, and so we just always had that thing of like, oh, you're not going to not see that as a threat, and I'll see it as a threat. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
We had to decide like we both see that as a threat, and so we're going to treat it accordingly.
Yeah, and it was sort of ingrained in us. I mean, if you take that whole needy woman who's attracted to power thing in a church, and you have a male pastor, like we saw that play out and crash and burn before our eyes. Like it was pretty easy for us to both go, man, that's a threat. That's a common threat, right?
So maybe that's how you look at it, is like you common enemy, but there's also common threats, which are more like systems or maybe like certain issues. Those will be common threats.
Right.
So you can recognize those together and decide what those are. And that also brings solidarity.
Absolutely.
Right.
And can I just say this really quickly? Like, again, the common enemy gets pretty dangerous when it's a person. So if you take that same vulnerable, needy woman who is attracted to power or whatever, it's a common threat when it comes in contact with a male egotistical pastor.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, another person, it may not be that,
right?
But when it comes in line with a male sort of,
or anyone that's sexually attracted, it doesn't have to be a male, but like
who is in a relationship,
and
has a wife and spends time alone in an office, you know what I mean? That's a full on like
absolute threat. Yeah.
Okay.
So as long as we both agree, like what are threats, what are our common enemies, that helps bring solidarity. And I was just saying that what I love about you is that you understood like let her vent, because that is one of the things that's going to create solidarity.
Yes.
As soon as the partner pipes up and says like, I don't really think you're, representing it right, or I don't really think she did that, there's an immediate division. I immediately feel like you're not with me. There's a time for that, and we'll talk about that, but that's not the time.
Exactly. And what happens with a guy, and again, whatever, I'm going to genderify it. I don't know how to say it, but whatever, however you want to say it. What happens with a guy is he wants to fix it.
Well, girls do too. Like ladies do too. It doesn't matter.
All right. Yeah. Well, guys and girls, the other person wants to fix it.
Sure.
And what I've learned is, okay, if you want to fix it in that moment, it's like getting out a hammer.
Yeah.
It's like getting out a hammer to try to do the thing that only a screwdriver can do.
Right.
And you can beat the shit out of a screw.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go in, dude.
Right.
You have to screw it in.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with me. It's like in those moments, you don't get a hammer out.
Right. Yes.
Like you just
tool. Which is why it's always helpful to ask the question when somebody's venting like that and you're unsure if they're looking for answers, because maybe they're asking kind of like rhetorical questions.
Yeah.
It's always good just to be like, I'm totally listening. I'm with you 100%. I agree, blah, blah, blah. But are you wanting me to give advice, or are you just wanting to listen? And hopefully the other person is like honest to say like, I just need you to listen right now.
Yeah. And I would even say this. You probably won't have to ask that question if you hear this. Sorry, I'm just venting. Yes. And then bam, they're back into it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just venting. Bam, they're back into it. Don't ask any questions, just agree.
Yeah.
in
So
that moment,
good.
like
So good.
Just
You
don't.
really nailed
like
that,
that,
and
babe?
I
Okay.
think that
Yeah.
that should be, everyone should listen to
Okay.
that because it's really helpful.
Okay.
So, but what I think this boils down to is we talked about how like you do this because you know that I want to be heard,
Yeah.
which means that you're protecting one of the things I value.
Sure.
One of my highest values is being heard and being known and being seen. And I would say that that's pretty universal across everybody. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to be known, heard, seen. So it's this idea of the ego and that
Right.
you're protecting my ego. And what I want to say about that is like ego gets such a bad rap.
I
Like
know.
people are always like anti-ego, you know, like put aside the ego.
Right.
And I'm like, well, let's just be, I'll just define what I think of as ego.
Okay, go.
Your individual core self, your values, your identity,
Right.
the thing that is like makes you you, your sense of self is what I'm referring to as ego.
I love it.
So
It's like that idea of if you have no higher commitment than yourself, you're way off. But
Right.
you do have to know yourself, and you are an individual, and you were created for a specific purpose, on and on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you have a reason why you're here, and there are things that are
Right.
beautiful and special about you.
yeah.
And those things need to be heard. Let me hear you sing. We want to hear your voice. You have something to say.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a difference between being egocentric and like ego-centered.
Everything's about me.
Everything's about me, and just having a right understanding of your ego and
Right.
in knowing who you are.
I had to get over a lot of like, how does this affect me? What do I think about this?
Yeah.
How is this going to turn into, you know?
Which is so egocentric.
It's like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. It can get twisty real fast.
Right.
So now,
Yeah.
but one of the things I love is that I think by you putting a priority on listening and letting me vent and knowing that that's something I need,
Yeah.
you actually were protecting my ego
Right.
because you were protecting what I value.
And I think there's something really special about everything about you.
Right. And,
really do.
And I think like, so because I've been married to you, I know there's things about your ego that you really value.
100%.
Like parts of Kris Carmody that you really care about are really important, and being heard is also one of them.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing in that moment of being on your side instead of maybe taking the other person's side or casting some like things into the equation, what I'm doing is like preserving your sense of self
Yes.
and what you
Yes.
value.
Preach
And
it.
a good partner is
Right.
always looking to preserve and build up the other person's sense of self.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah. Because if you're, if it, you know, it can be so dismissive.
Yes. Dismissive is the perfect word.
You know, when you're like, when you have these answers, or you're belittling,
Right.
you know, or you're saying like, oh, you're just kind of being, you know,
Right.
you're just ranting, you know, whatever.
Or
That's-
or the new term, you know, like, well, I just was being gaslighted. Okay, whatever you want to call
Whatever.
it. Whatever you want to call it.
right.
Somebody was dismissing how you felt, what you thought,
Exactly.
and you don't want that in your partner. You want your partner to be that safe person.
Right.
So protecting the ego is really important. So one of the things we were talking about is like, we've been married a long, long time. So we know kind of what each other's
Right.
values are and what you should be protecting in me and what I should be protecting in you. And
It's
what
like,
you
don't go
value.
there. Don't go there
Yeah,
right
like,
now.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I know, for instance, that some of the things you value are like being respected. Like, you know,
Sure.
I would be very careful to preserve and protect your ego in public, in the sense that like, I'm not going to try to like in public disagree with you if it's not something that like,
So humiliating.
yeah, like for anyone, it's humiliating to be disagreed with in public.
In
like,
public, in front of
I'm not
everyone.
talking about like, oh no, that, you know, I know I want this instead of that. What I'm saying is like, no, that didn't happen, or, you know,
I hear that a lot with couples.
Oh.
They're like, oh, you're not remembering that, right? That did not happen that way. And,
Yeah.
you know, they're adamant. They're putting their foot down. I'm like, let him have it
yeah,
for a minute.
especially in public, and then deal with it in private. But in
Exactly.
public, all of a sudden the stakes get way higher. And what happens is you have now robbed each other of something you really value, which is like your ability to speak up in public and represent something.
Right.
You're kind of stripping the person of that respect
Yeah.
that's due them.
Right. And there's this, yeah. And I think that you have a really good, I don't know, I can't say it's intuition anymore because we've been together for so long and we both have really tripped over this.
Ugh.
I mean, we've
Yeah.
made so many mistakes in this area where I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I trampled on you in that moment.
Right,
And
yeah.
I can't believe,
Same.
like, you
Yep.
know, and there's a word for it that is, again, like genderfied, but it's this whole thing of like, women would do well to not emasculate a man in public.
It's not just women. Anyone would do well not to emasculate someone like a man.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure. And emasculation, I know that that's like a term that's probably blah, blah, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, for me, it helps. I know that it would help to put that in sort of perspective.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Do you think that's because one of your core values about your ego and who you are and your sense of self is your masculinity?
Absolutely.
So-
I love being a man.
So-
like, I enjoy it. And there are things that I consider manly. And it's not just, you know, chopping wood with an axe.
Right. Yeah.
It's like shredding on a guitar. Or
Even though that's not, it's a gender, but you
it's
have
totally
decided.
gender neutral.
You have decided.
Sewing. I like to sew. No
Yeah.
judgment. You know? I mean, on and on.
Yeah. So, but masculinity is one of your values. So I know that about you, which is
Right.
why I'm going to do everything in my power. And having raised a lot of sons, I know that that's actually a really key component to a lot of men who value masculinity.
Sure.
So I'm going to protect that part of their ego
Right.
as much as possible.
Yes.
Like not toward the point where it's toxic and I'm like keeping my mouth shut when I shouldn't be, but like in as much as you can, preserve and protect each other in those things.
Absolutely.
Just like the things that I view as my identity as a woman, like, you know, those things, and you're not going to be like belittling them because you're like, she actually derives a lot of her sense of self from that.
Yeah.
Like when the kids were little and like being the quintessential mom that I dreamed of was part of my ego, was part of my identity.
Right.
You know, cooking the best soup on the planet, which
You cook the best soup on the planet.
You know, like those things you knew I valued. And so you're
Right.
going to protect those things. And, but as we were talking about this, we figured this out over the years through trial and error.
Well, fighting.
Through
Fighting is how we got. That's how we figured it out.
Yeah.
We fought about it.
But we actually came up with some questions.
Well, here, give me an example of like when you've been trampled on, and it started a fight. Or I'm thinking like this.
Okay.
You mentioned soup.
Yes.
You're super good at making soup, and you're really.
I'm a good cook in general.
You're a good
Let's
cook
just
in
admit
general.
it. Yeah.
If I walk into the kitchen while you're cooking,
Yes.
and I'm like, that casserole probably won't taste very good with that bacon on it.
Yeah.
I just don't. Are you sure that you should be putting bacon on top of that casserole?
Yeah.
No, that's a bad example because bacon tastes great on everything. But that would trample on you.
Well, it would just it undermines the thing that I have set up as part of my identity. Now all of a sudden I'm like, why is he questioning this core thing that I thought I was?
Right. And by the way, through our marriage, 27 years. Did I nail it? Did I nail that? 28?
28.
You don't remember it.
I don't know.
It.
We'll figure out.
But you've cooked a couple of bad meals. I mean, there's been a couple of bad meals. I love you.
Totally. Totally.
So it's not outside the possibility.
No, but it doesn't matter. You know that I value it.
Right.
And just like you're really good at fixing anything, I can be like, oh, Kris could fix the car and he can fix the house and he can fix the, radio and he can fix the whatever.
Yeah.
The furniture. It doesn't matter. You can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of something that you know about yourself.
Yeah.
And is part of like the structure of your ego and like your individuality and your sense of self. And so
do not question me.
So if all of a sudden it's like the other day, for instance.
Go ahead. Just give us an
We were taking
example.
pictures,
Yeah.
and you had this screen that we were looking at to
Right.
see our posture, and you kept turning it around when you needed to change something, and I was like, why are you turning that around? Or I was like,
why don't you just
think it'd be easier if you just, instead of turning it around each time, like came at it from the other distance? And you were like,
I was offended. Okay, I was genuinely offended. I was angry. I
because
was
you were like,
what? No, actually, I think the comment was, "Do you think I'm stupid?"
Yeah, totally.
I think you think I'm dumb.
But it wasn't actually that. It was that I actually wanted to know why you were turning it around because I didn't understand what was happening, but I could have asked it differently.
Oh, you butchered that one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the controls are on the back of the camera and the screen doesn't turn on if I have an extreme.
It's like you coming into the kitchen and being like, do you need to add salt to that? Or don't you think you need to add salt to that before? And I'm like,
you would
okay.
basically take the soup spoon and chase me out of the kitchen.
Yes, which I have many
You
times.
actually have.
Yes.
Yeah. Or you've thrown water in my face. What else have you done, Charity?
So we will talk about like what are better ways to ask those questions or to like pose those things.
Yeah.
When you're in the mode of knowing, wait, maybe I should keep my mouth shut for a second or rethink how I'm phrasing this to preserve the other person's individual sense of self.
Right. Because there is a possibility.
Yeah.
That they're overlooking something in that.
Absolutely.
But typically, it's like, if I'm taking photos, I already know what I'm doing.
Right.
Right. There could be, like, one of the worst things when I was growing up was I grew up in construction, so I'm a rough dude, right?
Okay.
But you would hire a young kid.
Yes.
And he would get on the job with all these older people,
Uh-huh.
all these older guys who are set in their ways.
Yeah.
And he would start making suggestions.
Yeah.
That is the worst thing that you can do is be a little young man
in any industry, the young person coming in
on a job and start making a bunch of suggestions.
Sure.
Because it's like it makes people it makes people
you're going to become the common enemy real quick. Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, and so that it's like, why are you asking this? We have so much longevity, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there could be different ways to do it. So here's what I'm saying. Maybe it is good to ask some questions, but you can't ask them in a certain way.
Right. And so we were going to talk about tips at the end.
Yeah. Oh, at the end. Okay.
Yeah, we were going to talk about tips of like, what are better ways to do this?
Okay.
Okay. So.
Well, you want to just give it now? Just give a tip now.
Okay. Well, like for instance, that situation where you were looking at the screen, I think one of the major things is don't go into a situation knowing that they value something.
Right.
Like I know you value being good at photography because you talk about it, you research it, you're into it, you buy gear, like all that stuff. That's one of the big triggers. Like, hey, that person values that thing because they spend a lot of time on it.
So time out before you give the tip on how to ask the question.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, how do you figure out what they value?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you figure out what they value?
Well, I ask myself the questions like, what are they spending a lot of time talking about?
Right. Like, what are they always talking about?
And
they must really value them.
What are they researching? What are they buying? What do they love? Like, what are
they doing with their time? Like,
what are they passionate about? When they get all hot and bothered when they're talking, what are those subjects?
Yes, that's pretty simple.
Right? But people don't pay attention to that stuff.
Because they have their own values.
Or I think actually what happens is I don't value photography. And so I can hear you saying all that stuff and doing it and seeing all the time you put
and in the back of your mind, you're going, why isn't he using an iPhone?
Well, I'm just like, I don't really care.
Right.
And then the worst thing you could do then as a partner is be like, well, because I don't care. Like
you
that's
shouldn't
not
care
a value.
either.
Yeah, that's not a value of his.
You're caring too much about this.
Right.
And I'm like, no, you have to have certain things set up in certain ways so we can get this picture. I would like to see your pictures, Charity.
Right. And
you're going like, I would like to taste your soup, Kris.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
There's things I value that you don't value,
Sure.
and the other way around. But you can easily tell someone's values by what they're spending their time and energy and love and affection on. And that should help you understand and know that you need to approach those things as part of that person's ego.
I love it.
From a protective stance instead of like a questioning stance.
I love that. Yeah.
So
here's my thing.
Yeah.
If you see me fumbling around with the camera, because this is all you see. All you see is me like, there's an easier way. Why does he keep on walking around the back of that camera? He's fumbling around.
I was
blah,
confused
blah,
by it.
Okay. So how would you ask that question?
So what I did do was I was like, why aren't you just doing that from the front? That's what I said.
And and my response was, do you really think I'm that stupid?
Okay. So now listen, just the way I said that was kind of like I knew an answer that I actually didn't know.
No.
I knew an answer. So I was going in asking you like I knew. Kind of like if you were to say like, don't you think we should add salt to this? That's not really a question. That's like, hey, add salt to this.
I know this needs salt.
Right.
Just like you're saying, I know that if you went around back, you could totally, yeah.
Or even just the slightest like innuendo that you might know something different or better. What would have been?
You're asking it with an answer in mind.
Yes. So I think the key to this is,
Okay.
well, especially when it's coming to negotiations or trying to get your way or trying to figure out what's going on or
Yeah.
involved in those conversations whenever there's like, hey, we need to decide something, we need to come to a compromise. Go into it with an actual question like you're wanting to know.
Okay.
So in
Okay.
that situation, I should have said, man, you spend a lot of time doing camera stuff. Talk to me about why are you doing it from the back there and turning it around each time?
I like that. I think I like that. I think I like that.
Because I'm acknowledging,
Yeah.
like, you know more about it than me.
Yeah.
Or I could have said, I genuinely am so curious. Why do you keep going around the other side?
Right. Yeah.
That is
Okay.
a totally different
I
connotation.
think language that you could use is that second one was better.
Okay.
Because you go, I'm genuinely curious.
Yes. I don't know
Why-
the answer.
Or the other language. So I think I'm genuinely curious, and
Yeah.
then ask your question.
Yes.
Or I honestly don't know the answer to this.
Yes.
Why are you da-da-da-da?
Yes.
I don't know the answer to this, but is this going to be a salty soup?
Right.
Or is this going to be one that's not that salty?
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
I genuinely don't know.
Which helps the other person. It protects their individuality, their ego.
Yes, I love it.
And it allows the other person to actually ask the question and be willing to be open to hear an answer. So if you don't go into that with,
It's just smarter.
it's so much smarter.
It's so much smarter.
And so to stop yourself,
Actual language. You need words.
yes, to slow yourself down and go, okay, is this something that the person values? Then I really need to be careful about the language I'm using and approaching my question about this.
Because
or
if
my
you
suggestion.
think at any point your partner is going to say something, don't you dare go there right now. Then if you can hear that already before you ask,
Yeah.
then you need to preface that question with, I genuinely don't know, or I'm really curious.
Yeah.
Not in a mad, a pejorative way.
Yeah,
But like in
yeah.
a way that where you're like, I honestly don't know the answer to this.
Yeah.
And then you ask your question.
Yeah. So
I think that's smart, right?
very, very smart. And so we'll go into some more of those tools
Okay,
because
yeah.
they're all kind of part of negotiating.
Oh,
Because
okay,
this
yeah.
is all about getting your
what
way,
you want.
getting what
Yeah.
you want, whether it's knowledge, a compromise on something, a
Right.
conversation about something.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding the values. So the other thing we talked about is like, okay, I understand by watching you
Okay.
and paying attention to what you love and listening to you, both in listening to your actions, watching your actions and paying attention to those and listening to the words you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a writer, listening to what you're writing to me about it, like listening to that stuff of value,
Yeah.
knowing what you love, watching what you're researching, watching what you're buying, those kind of things are informing me. But I also should be asking myself the question, what is my partner proud about in their life?
Ooh.
What are the things that they really want to be identified at? And the opposite is, what are the things they really don't want to be identified
Like they have a fear of being known as.
Yes. And
doing
Brene
or-
Brown talks about that. She's like,
Oh, really?
ask the question, what thing do you not want to be known for? Because that'll tell you right away what
Wow.
things to like make
Okay,
sure
okay. On the spot, give me one for you. One thing that you do not want to be known for. Go.
being weak.
Wow.
No question.
Here's the hard part: is that's so true for both of us
Yes.
because we were both raised with that being taught that this should be your greatest fear.
Right. Well, I don't even know if that was a conscious thing. I'm a pretty strong-willed woman, and like, weak can be defined as whatever you want. But for me personally, one of my greatest fears is that I would be seen as weak.
As great as my mom was, and much as I love her and want to honor and venerate her, she was a good mom.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm a sensitive man.
Yes.
I am. Would you?
Yes.
Don't say hypersensitive.
No, I didn't. I disagreed with sensitive.
Okay, I am sensitive. I can feel a lot.
Yes.
Like
are a feeler.
I've said a lot of times, like one of my greatest gifts is that I can feel everything.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's
You're
true.
much more of a feeler than I am.
Right. And my mom often would be like, toughen up,
Uh-huh.
get your
Yeah.
shit together. Like
Yeah.
she would constantly be like, quit pouting, stand up straight.
Yes.
You're sulking, self-pity. Come on. What now? Move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, in one way, I love her for that.
Yeah.
Because I tell people all the time, she really made a man out of me. You know what I mean? Like if you're a single mom and you're worried about your son, I'm not worried about it, because you know what I mean? Because like you can toughen your kid up, whatever, you know, on and on. But on the downside of that is that, I mean, it was definitely,
you had to be tough, and you didn't get to feel the things that you needed to feel, which was the real downside.
In some certain instances.
Yeah. So you don't want to be known for being weak either.
Right. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And part of it is just because that was just taught.
Right.
Like it was so ingrained in me.
So if you know this about each other, and maybe that would be a good exercise to go through with your partner, is like, give me your top 3 things you never want to be known for. And then give me your top 3 things that you really want to be known for. And in your mind, then remember, and in my mind, I'll remember, those are the things he values and the things that are the lowest, like he values not being associated with.
So can I give you one and then you'll give me one? Like if I were to guess, you know how they do that thing with love languages? Like what's her love language? And then 35 years later, they still don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say for you, something that you have a fear of not being known as. Does that make sense? Did I say that right? Whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You would not want to be known, or you want to be known as a woman.
Sure.
Who's perfectly capable of everything.
You're saying I would want to be known as that.
And your greatest sort of fear, or the nemesis to that, is you being held back by any system or any institution or any thought or mindset or preconception that a woman can't do what a man can, or a woman can't accomplish
everything she wants.
Run the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that, I think
nailed it. I'm a feminist to the core.
To the deepest core of who you are,
the deepest
which is,
core.
in my opinion, very sexy.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Okay, now give me one.
I would say that one of your greatest...
Be careful.
One of the things you value most in life is your creativity.
Okay.
And your...
So when I make... Yeah, go ahead.
Innovation.
Yeah.
That comes out in your clothing, in your art, in your music, in what you do with your hands. Like, you value creativity. It is one of your highest values.
Right.
What you do not want to be known for is being derivative. It's like, if I could give you the worst insult, it would be your derivative.
I copied something of a copy of a copy.
No,
yeah.
Oh, be like,
no. Yeah.
You know.
Nailed it, babe. You kind of know me. You
yes.
Get me.
Well, so
you get me.
We've had these conversations though. So this is a really good thing for partners to do, is have these kind of conversations.
Yes.
What do you want to be known for? What do you never want to be affiliated with?
Right.
And that'll help me understand how I'm approaching you and what things we're deciding are the most important things to preserve in each other.
Right. And another woman might be like, my worst fear is to not be the greatest mom in the world. And another person, a man might be like, hey, my greatest fear would be laziness, or something like, I want to show up at this job every single day, get my pension. You know what I mean? Like, it's different for everybody.
Totally. Everyone has their thing.
But you have to be really careful in those moments.
And those areas are the ones you have to preserve the most.
Yes, I love it.
Preserve and protect both the values and the things, the anti-values. Like,
yes.
They're kind of equal importance, don't you think?
I love it. Yeah.
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 So the other idea that we had is like, there's common goals that we've created together.
Sure.
That we've given voice to. We wanted to be financially stable. We wanted to raise our kids a certain way. We have goals over the time. So there's this common enemy
big
idea.
Picture goals. Yeah.
But then there's also common goals.
Yeah.
Where you've decided this is where we're headed together.
You have a dream board.
Oh, I totally.
Has anyone ever seen? We need to show your dream board.
No,
we're not going to show it right now. Okay.
It's embarrassing. But
why is it embarrassing? And you have like the lamest magnets.
Oh, I love
your
my
magnets
inspirational.
Are so bad.
Inspirational magnets. It's like
Talk
the
about
only thing
derivative.
It's the only thing I'm like that about. I love inspirational magnets.
Cute.
Inspirational.
Can you remember one?
Oh, yeah.
Stand your ground. It's sacred.
Yeah, totally. All that stuff. I love those. I have them all over.
So cute.
Yeah. It reminds me of your mom. Something your mom would do. Yeah.
I would never have a magnet like that.
No. No. But that's all right. I love them. So you know that they are valuable to me.
You're right.
So you let me have them, even though you're
Of
like,
course.
oh.
I'm like, go get some more magnets. It's fine, baby. Go get you a magnet. I'm gonna get you a magnet for Christmas. I'm gonna find the cheesiest saying I can and get it, and you'll be like, tear, single tear. Like, what?
It's the only. Don't get it to me in a card or any other thing. I need it for good. Okay, so here's the thing about common goals, because we talked about common enemies. We talked about like maybe common threats.
Common threats, yeah.
And then now common
Common
goals.
Yeah, let's get positive. Sure.
Yeah. Or this is, I think, something that happens. We talked about this in the other podcast, how sometimes you'll go into something and I'll feel like I want something that you don't necessarily want. So it's not really a common goal yet.
Right.
But in partnership, a goal by one person must be the goal of the other person, unless you've both decided to set down that
Can you say
goal.
that again, please? That's so good. Say it again.
A goal of one person must be the goal of the other person if you've decided to be in partnership together, or you've decided together to kind of lay down that goal. And I'm not saying like me finishing my education has to be your same goal. What I'm saying is the common goals you've decided on together have to be together. And what the trap people fall into is they say, like, if I didn't get my way, it's a loss and you won. And so I'm feeling like I'm losing something and you're gaining something, which is such a trap, because in partnership that doesn't exist.
That's so good.
In partnership, it actually means business partnership in life, any of that stuff. It means that if we win, if I win, we win.
Right.
If you lose, we lose.
That's so good. Yeah.
And so
it's such an important precept, because one of the other things in any relationship, or even in, in life, it's like, if I see you winning, I'm not losing.
Yes.
If I see you gaining, I haven't been stolen from.
Yes.
Right. Like that's the hardest thing in a relationship. It's like, and you have this weird dynamic a lot where, a partner will get jealous of another partner.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, you're not losing anything by that person winning.
Yeah. Do you feel like that often happens because they haven't actually articulated that it's a common goal that they're both
I think that's
towards?
part of it. I think that's part of it. And I think that there's another piece of it is oftentimes in a relationship when one of the partners is just kind of like got a golden touch and they've got a lot of momentum and they're going, and the other partner is feeling less
insecure,
less
whatever.
momentum, and they're not quite being as successful. All of a sudden, all the focus goes on the winning partner, and it's like, well, I'm not winning because you're winning. Like, all our time and all of our resources get spent on you, and it's like, no, dude, you just haven't stepped up lately. You know what I'm saying? Like,
or the momentum isn't for that particular thing. Momentum can't be
Exactly.
on everything at one time.
Exactly. And that's, I think that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up, is because in a relationship, it's oftentimes one or the other partner is really in a momentum phase. And if you can add to that momentum, or say, hey, look, let's do whatever it takes to make you the most successful person right now. Mm-hmm. Or not the most, like more than me, but like the most successful person you can be.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
What's the whole rising tide lifts all boats? If we see momentum, and we've done this lots of times.
So many times.
It's like, okay, well, one of us started a business. Well, then, okay, all hands on deck. Everybody's going to that because that's where the momentum is.
And it's the season where I get to give.
Right. We have seasons where one person is going to be sacrificing more because, but it doesn't mean that the sacrifice is a loss. It means it's an investment.
Exactly.
The sacrifice is an investment instead of a loss into whatever momentum you've decided is your common goal.
Yes.
But that takes rehearsal over and over and over. I mean, I can't even count how many fights we've had over the time we've been married about like re-articulating. No, we decided to pursue this common goal. Like, let's get our panties out of a wad and say, like, we decided this.
Yep.
Now we're headed that way. So everybody like retake assessment of where we're at and who's given what right now for the common goal.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yep. Every time we've started a business.
Yep.
Every time we've bought an investment property that we had to move in for a year.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, I'm not packing again.
Yeah.
Or no, why do we have to, it's
not remodeling, but then we're like, well, we decided the common goal was we're trying to build an income stream. Like,
and we have to build a retirement for ourselves. And so get out your hammer. And
yep. This is what we're all going to do. Right. Like,
yep.
And so even besides like common goals of actually activities, what are the common goals we have that we are like, this trumps everything? this particular, like if there's really something that we feel like is of utmost importance, one of our kids is really struggling. That's going to take priority. That's going to all of a sudden be the common goal over everything because we've decided what things are utmost important to us, our highest values.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's, does that go without saying? No.
I don't think so.
I think you do have to determine, like,
it is important to determine, especially before the relationship starts. It's really important to decide and go, would we have the same highest common goals?
Well, okay, for instance.
Or values?
For instance, we had a common goal to pay for our children's college, each of their bachelor's degrees, so that they could enter into life without student loans.
Yes.
And that hurt.
Ugh, awful.
And we got quite a few times where we were like, well, if we weren't paying for this education, we could probably buy that Corvette. I mean?
Over a few times over, I'm sure.
But we both said no.
This was something we decided on.
This is a common goal.
Yeah. But
get happy.
Yeah, this is like,
and look at our kids. I mean, we're so happy.
But it's not even like the action we did was the thing that made that. It was that we decided together, this is what we're going to sacrifice for. Right. This is what we're going to do. Whether it's for some people, it might be paying off something. Or,
it really cleared it up.
Yeah, it did clear it up. And that's what the statement of common goals does.
Yes.
Is it really clears it up. And then I will say.
It's like we decided this.
Right.
And we need to stick to it.
Yeah.
We need to follow through.
Yeah. So when you're talking about negotiating with your partner or trying to get what you want, it's really important to understand, like, okay, does this thing go towards our common goals? Or am I all of a sudden throwing this totally rogue thought in, like, I have gotten out with this agenda we've never agreed on, we've never talked about, and I'm throwing it in there and I'm trying to negotiate on this thing. Like, that might not be a good idea. You might need to have that rediscussion of the common goals to figure out, is this a goal you're both pursuing, or is one person just really wanting something that you haven't decided together?
Right.
Which would be a different issue altogether.
Well, that's just a fight. That's a fight.
Or something,
don't be scared to fight.
Or something the other person just needs to take on, but don't drag the other person along with you. Right. They didn't sign up for that if you haven't decided that it's a common goal.
Okay, say that again, because you've done that to me so many times, Charity.
So many
like
times.
We're going this direction
I'm
now.
a woman of agendas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, lists and agendas. And new initiatives and new things that we should build.
We're going to start 5 new businesses by year end. But we have to have those conversations to go, okay, we're not really going to do that. Or, let's do that. Let's get on board. Now let's work towards that.
Go ahead and start the next nonprofit by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So tips for negotiating are discover what the person's values are. Make sure you're going into it really protecting them. Make sure you're taking that time to listen, and then making sure like you have established common goals and that you know what things are of utmost importance. It's that 911 thing. Like if I'm bringing up something, you're doing something, we've decided on who's doing what thing that day or what the agenda is, and all of a sudden something that's come up in my life, I want to interrupt what you're doing.
We've talked about this, in a podcast before about the mattress being delivered at the door kind of thing. It's that same exact thing. So, for instance, can I give an example just quickly?
Yeah.
So that idea of the other day, I had until noon. We had talked the day before. I'm like, hey, what's tomorrow looking like? Yeah. And it was like, okay, we're doing this whatever family thing, which trumps a lot when we do family stuff.
Because we decided that's important.
Family stuff is really important. So at noon, we're going to do... So I'm like, sweet, man. If I get up at 5 a.m., I can be in the shop making stuff and doing whatever and learning Instagram because I'm so bad at it or whatever. And so here I am, and it's like 10 o'clock, and I'm trying so hard to just make an Instagram post. It's everything I can do to try to get this damn Instagram thing off the ground. And you come in and are like... freaking out, and you are wanting me to stop what I'm doing, even though it's an Instagram post. You want me to stop what I'm doing and come and do what you're doing.
Yes.
And I'm like, I have to get this done. Like, I thought I had till noon to do the thing that I needed. I know it seems insignificant, but to me, it's monumental because I'm trying to get an Instagram post off.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like, they just flip and do and, whatever. But for me, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And we fought really bad about that.
Yes, because you were like, you don't value what I'm doing. You told me the time frame.
Here's the language is, babe, I know how insignificant this looks to you, but to me it's such a big deal right now. I have to get this done. You were saying, like last night we agreed I would have till noon to just do what I needed to do. And this is something I feel like I need to do. So we fought about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We did.
Meanwhile, here's the thing that I didn't realize is that you were negotiating another land deal. And all kinds of stuff was needing to be answered and needing your input. Needing my input in that moment. And I'm thinking to myself, nothing, I have till noon. Like, don't bother me till noon. This can wait until noon. Meanwhile, you had people on the phone, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, go ahead and just.
Well, yeah. So I was just trying to do something. So I wanted to interrupt you. So in that situation, what we decided after we fought about it was like, yes,
it was a pretty good fight. It was a pretty good fight.
I could have handled it differently. I did make it feel insignificant.
It was terrible. You made me feel awful.
But then also, I was not clear to identify that there was a common goal that was kind of needed to trump it. We needed a 911 in that situation for me to go, I know you're doing this and it's super important and we agreed that you could have until noon, but I need to call a 911 right now and be like, this is kind of urgent, of high value, something we've decided on, and can you just give me 10 minutes?
Because I know how rational I am, and I know that if I make commitments up front, I'm a disciplined person.
Yeah.
And I also am a person of integrity. And if you said I have to call an audible, whatever the safe word is, if it's an emergency, I'm calling an audible. Look, this is a flash mob. I don't know. Whatever I know that I would be like, okay, I already agreed to this.
Right.
Let's do it.
Now, you can't pull that about just random stuff. Like all of a sudden I have an agenda and I'm going to be like 911. It's not really something, But if it's something actually serious where it might be time sensitive, like you have to have a way to communicate that to each other that doesn't rob the other person of the things that are important to them.
Yeah, and you are such a genuine person and a loving person and a person of integrity that you would never do that. I already know that about you. You would never just call an audible because you want something. Like you would do it because of genuine emergency. You're like, well, our bank accounts are all just going to start drying up if you can't answer this one question right now. It's something, you know what I mean?
Well,
you would do that.
I don't think I always would have done that, but I'm certainly more careful about that than I used to be.
Wait a minute. Are you cracking? Are you saying right now you might call it an audible that doesn't need to be called?
I'm saying back in the day, I probably would have, out of sheer emotion or like trying to get my way or manipulation, like for sure. Now I'm just like, well, honestly, the more self-sufficient I become, the more I'm like, well, I'll figure it out, or
Yeah, that's true, huh?
Yeah,
that's really a good point.
Yeah. So, okay, the 911, you have to have these common goals. Okay, so tips for negotiating. We kind of came up with some tips for negotiating to get your way with your partner that are helpful and healthy ways to negotiate, because you actually do need to learn to negotiate with your partner.
100%.
Very critical.
Yes.
And healthy. So
not to only live your own life and meet the things that you're supposed to be doing, but also to have a healthy actual relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so tips number 1, make time to listen. Knowing the values.
I love it.
Identifying what is the important things to that
Don't
person.
interrupt when they're venting, just agree.
Yes.
That's the idea.
Listen, make time to listen. So we have counseled lots of people where like one person might be a really good talker on their feet and the other person might they can't
think on
process
their feet.
that quick.
They've got to go take a week off.
Or they're not a verbal processor like that. They don't like to fight and debate.
Right.
So in that situation, taking the time to listen might mean I'm going to take the time to allow you to write down what you are thinking.
Ooh.
Or I'm going to take the time to just watch your actions for a little bit. And that is my way of listening to what you're doing.
I'll read you for a while.
Yeah. Or I'm going to even though you're not speaking up right away, we're going to set aside an entire hour where I'm literally, and we have given this counsel to people, do not speak for an entire hour and let her just say, however slow she wants to say it, what she needs to say, and keep your mouth shut. Don't say a word except, I hear you. Because some people cannot stop themselves.
Oh, I know. But the frustrating, turtle emotional processor is in need of space.
Yes.
And time. It's like,
well,
but it's true. Those people.
It's not any less valuable.
I know. And I have known people like this, and they feel so much better. It just takes them so long.
Which is fine.
Which is great. And they have to have that time. So make time to listen.
Yeah. Don't be the jerk and not make the time, which I have often been in my life. And now I'm keep reminding myself, like, no, Charity, even if they're not asking, and even if you could kind of railroad this, like, make the time to listen.
Railroad.
Whatever.
Steamroll, railroad. I think those are both the same. But I will say, luckily, you and I we're both like firebrand.
Yeah, but that's not normal. We in all of our counseling,
bam, bam, bam,
we know that most couples, one person processes very differently than the other, and so you have to allow that time. It's pretty rare that you have two people who like love to verbally duke it out. Most people are not like that. One's confrontational, one isn't. Whatever.
Again, I think I want to try to say this in every podcast. Don't be afraid to fight. You have to be able to fight.
You have to be, and you have
so
to be able
healthy.
to fight in a healthy way.
It's
so
healthy.
Okay, the other thing that I think we've gotten a lot better on, I've gotten a lot better on, I'll take ownership of this, is understanding timing. Like we talked about at the beginning, you let me vent, and you might be like listening to me and being like, Charity, you're so, deep down, you're like, you're so wrong about this. You're going to eat these words. Like, you're not understanding the situation, or like, I don't think maybe you know something I don't know about it, but you're letting me go. Now's not the time for you to pipe in and be like, nah, you think you got that wrong.
Right.
But there is a time to do that.
Yes, there is a time.
And understanding timing is key.
Yeah. And the timing isn't when there's like a breath in the conversation, or there's a breath when you're venting and you say, I know I'm just venting. A lot of guys or a lot of partners in that moment would be like, oh, that's my cue to like go ahead and fix this. No. That's your cue to just keep listening.
Yep. And another time, a totally different time,
right,
is when you figure out how to.
When's timing? When's good timing for me? When do you think you see it like an open door to confront something in me?
Well, I have to make sure you're a one-track mind guy.
One thing at a time.
So I have to make sure there's actually space to deal with it. I used to always want to talk about things when you were in the middle of doing something else, and then I get pissed off that you weren't actually hearing me. And now I realize, like, that's on me. I was the dummy who showed up and was trying to talk to you while you're doing something else.
Right.
So now I figure out, like, oh, the timing needs to be when you're calm, when you have time to not be thinking about other things.
We're sitting in the living room having a glass of wine, or we're on a walk.
When it's invitational for me to do that.
I love it.
Then I'll bring up those things. And
that's smart. That's real
smart.
Same
thing with me. When you see, I think what you do with me is when you see that I'm starting to have little epiphanies about something, then you'll eke in like a little, well, yeah, and that.
Well, for me, with you, when I'm ready to confront something, there's two things that come to mind. One is I have to see you're starting to humility seems like the word.
Okay.
You're starting to do this. Oh, what if I'm thinking about this wrong? Or what if this, then it's like, okay, there's a way in here where we can start to process through. Yeah. What if, babe? Like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they didn't mean that.
You kind of take that and you do the same thing as the venting, and you like side with me on the little bit I'm giving.
Yeah, you take that little bit and you just do kind of a what if thing, or you know what, that may not have been what they meant.
Yeah.
Or maybe it didn't go down like that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Or sometimes I think you've played dumb and you're like, oh, I had never thought about that. When I know deep down you were thinking the whole time.
Yeah. We're going to do a podcast on how to lie to your partner.
Oh, yeah. That'll be a good
That'll be a good one. But the other one is, for me, confronting you.
Yeah.
Is sometimes time's up.
Sure.
Sorry.
It's done.
Done.
You're done with it.
And I have to yell in your face, I've reached my bottom. I'm done. I can't do it. Sorry.
We must confront this.
We have to talk now.
Yeah.
And you go into the closet and you yell at each other.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Even if there's people there. Like,
right.
There's sometimes you just do that, I think, as a couple.
But it's not the most effective approach.
It's horrible.
It's like the last.
It's horrible.
That's the last resort.
But it is effective. Like, it's at least you get the thing.
For some people, yeah. It is for me, and you've learned that about me. So but it's about timing, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out the timing.
Timing, yes.
So the other thing that we talked about is back to that, ask like you're actually asking, like that you actually want to know the answer.
Yeah.
Quit like pretending you know something going into it.
Well, a lot of times you have an answer that you already know,
or that you want,
and you walk into it with that.
So
you're not actually asking, dude.
No. We've been experimenting this, which is super fun. And it's been working really well. We've been experimenting in our own relationship where we started this thing where we're like, because we're going through so many changes, all these, we're creating all these things that it felt more safe to say before we brought up an idea or something to talk about. It felt more safe to say at the beginning, okay, I'm just going to start talking out loud and start like just kind of like saying things and brainstorming.
Yeah.
As soon as one of us prefaced it with like that,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it wasn't like they're proposing that we do this. They're just thinking out loud. So I've like hands open. Okay, he's just thinking out loud.
Yep. And that's one of the ways that I'll do that too is just say like, okay, so I don't know where this is going to go. I honestly don't know, but I need to start talking out loud. So I'm just going to talk out loud.
Yeah.
This isn't a thing. I'm not accusing anybody. I just have to talk out loud for a minute. Let's talk out loud about this. And I don't know where we're going with it. And bad day, you just start talking.
That's a very helpful negotiation tactic because it actually gets you to actually start to talk about what the options are.
And the other thing is what I've discovered that language does is it helps me go, I think we're going to discover an answer as we talk.
Yes.
Like, I don't know where this is going. I just need to talk out. Just talking out loud. I'm not biting your head off. I'm just talking out loud. I need to talk out loud really quick here. Let's go. And that has been so helpful.
It's been so helpful. So that's a key to negotiating because it gets you to actually bringing in all those things. And then we said, recognizing what's of value to the other person. I see you've been studying this, like the camera one. I see you've been researching this. Yeah. I see you put a lot of effort into this. I haven't been. So can you tell me why you're doing it that way?
Right.
And that helps because it's like, oh, instead of me coming in like I somehow know something about cameras, which I do not.
Right.
It lets me ask the question honestly.
It puts the person who's put out the effort sort of in the driver's seat.
Yes.
And it's rightful.
Yes.
It's rightfully so. That person should be in the driver's seat of that conversation.
Yeah.
And so, that walking into it saying, I genuinely don't know the answer to this, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about this.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know and you might know, then talk to me about this.
Right.
And it just kind of opens up this thing. And it lets, the more questions you ask, the better. In all negotiation, rely on questions more than assertions every time.
I love it.
It's going to bring out things you can identify then, and you can find pieces of commonality to pull from.
Yeah, there's a podcast in there too.
For sure.
We're doing that.
For sure.
How to ask questions.
So another big key that we've come to lately is like we have to start treating each other like we mean what we say.
Yeah. Here's what you're going to do for 20 years of marriage. Read each other's minds.
Try to. You're going to attempt it.
No. You're going to expect that the other person is going to read your mind. You're going to expect that the things that you do are going to be sufficient and you don't have to use words.
Total baloney.
It's
doesn't
such
work.
BS. Like you're just
work.
never going to get there if you're a mind reader. Like, sorry.
And it's your way of like huffing and puffing around. Like I would always do that to you. I'd like you would say something and I would think he's not actually going to do that because he's going to hold that over my head later. So then I need to usurp that and like not take him at his word and like try to read into it and then adjust accordingly. So that we had
so bad.
So the other day we during this fight we were mentioning, one of the things we came to is like, okay, enough of this. We're both mature, grown-ass adults. I'm going to take you at your word. If you don't want to do something or you do want to do something, just say it like it is. And I'm going to take that as your word and I'm not going to personalize it. And then I'm just going to treat you like the adult that you are. And then you're going to do the same for me. And so we're going to have very frank discussions about what we do and do not want to do. And we're going to trust that the other person actually means what they say.
I love that.
It's been so liberating.
It's so liberating. It's like, I don't want to go to Yogurtland. and most rational people are like, who on the planet would not want to go to Yogurtland?
Yeah.
And you obviously want to go to Yogurtland.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You're going to Yogurt. Give me
you're going to
go to Yogurtland. It's like, no, actually, I'm a grown-ass adult. I don't like Yogurtland, all right? I'm not going to go. Like,
and so I just need to, instead
like
of taking that as a personal thing, I just need to say like, oh, he doesn't want to go to Yogurtland. That's fine. I can still go to Yogurtland.
I'm going to go to Yogurland.
And quit making it like I need him to do what I want,
Right.
Like treat each other like grown-ass adults.
I love
say
it.
what you mean what you say, and let both of each other do that. And then when the other person, and be vocal about it, when the other person then goes back and is trying to hold something over you because you took them at their word, don't allow that. Call that out and be like, no, you said, and we agreed that we were both going to say what we mean.
Right.
So I just took you at your word for that. I'm not going to personalize it. I'm not going to make it over emotional.
Yep.
It's a key tactic.
Okay, wait. Quick. I know we've already gone for an hour and 3 minutes.
Oh.
But I will say, I'm going to take you at your word, right? You have that precept.
Yeah.
I'm taking you at your word. I'm treating you like, I love that vernacular, as a grown-ass adult.
Yeah.
Something about the word ass in there is just perfect.
Makes it so much more.
Grown-ass adult, right? Grown-ass woman, grown-ass man, right? Here's what I would say is a lot of times you think that decision that you've made, now you're being treated as a grown-ass adult, that decision is forever. And that can be a trap.
Yes.
And so one of the verbal ways I get myself out of that, very simple. I've had a change of heart.
Oh, I love it.
It's easy.
Yeah.
I've had a change of heart. You know what? I think I like Yogurtland. And I want the gummies.
Yeah.
I want gummies now.
I'll be like, okay.
Okay. All right. You've had a change of heart. Let's go.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm going to take you at your word. You're a grown-ass man that you've had a change of heart.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Again, like, let's just be honest. And
Super easy.
Let's keep to that honesty.
Yeah.
So the last tactic we talked about, well, second to last, was like the understanding small wins. Like there's stuff you're going to argue about in marriage. And this always is surprising to me is that couples will ruin their relationship over stupid shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like they'll duke it out over the littlest things. And again, I want to go back to the principle that in partnership, there's no such thing as win-lose.
Right.
Opposite parties. It's we are both winning or we are both losing. That's what
Yes.
partnership is like.
Yep.
So when there's small wins, like if you're like, I don't want to go to Yogurtland, and I honestly could give a shit if we go to Yogurtland. Great. Let's not go to Yogurtland. That's a small win. And you know what that does immediately is it puts money in the bank. I view it as an investment. I just invested in your happiness.
Ooh, by not going to Yogurtland?
By giving the small, like, I'm conceding that. Like, okay, that just made us both stronger. Here's why. Whenever you have somebody who insists on getting their way all the time and never concedes to the other partner, there's so much contempt and animosity that builds.
It's like debt.
So listen, ladies or gentlemen or whoever is listening, let the small wins put money in the bank for you not being the hard ass that always has to get their way.
Wow.
Be the person that invests in the stuff you don't really, like, it's not worth even caring about.
Who cares?
Let those things be wins. Let them be investments. Let them pour into the overall strength of the partnership and the other person feeling like you care about what they want.
Okay. You have to give an example. Can you give an example?
I just did Yogurtland.
That's not good enough.
Okay, you give an example.
Well, I'm thinking like, because a friend of mine used to always say, you don't really know what life tastes like. And I'm like, what? The taste of life. You know what I mean? Like, this is really living. And it's like, until you really taste what tasting life is, you taste a lot of death. So for instance, like your form of entertainment, the way you entertain yourself when you're coming up and through your college years or whatever, a lot of friends of mine developed some really bad addictions and habits.
Sure.
And the whole time they were thinking they were really getting a taste of life. This is what it means to live, man. Drinking beer every night and doing a little bit of Coke on the side, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
They were really tasting life.
Yeah.
When really they were tasting death.
Sure.
And I think that kind of principle goes really well in this whole thing of like, you don't really know what it feels like to win in a relationship.
Oh.
A lot of times what you're feeling is you think you're feeling a loss. You think you think it's just this awful loss feeling, but really it's that sacrificial feeling. It's that feeling of like, no, this is a real win here.
Yes, it's a greater win.
It's what it feels like to put money in the bank.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
You see what I'm saying? Like there's a feeling that comes with you being on a team.
Yes. Belonging, having a joint purpose, common goals.
Sometimes, you can't just be the asshole.
Yeah.
And you have to give,
Yeah.
And you have to learn what that feels like.
And I think what you're saying is like...
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think what you're saying is like the taste of death could seem like life when you feel like they've conceded your point.
Yes.
And you're the one who just keeps saying like, no, I need to be proven wrong. You need to agree with me. You need to say that I was right. You need to look that up and acknowledge that I was right about that. Whatever.
That's not what a win tastes like.
Yes. That's actually death
That's
to your
loss.
relationship.
You're actually losing something by doing that.
I love
you're
that.
losing your loved one there.
I love that.
Like that's not the right feeling.
Yes. So
that indignance, you're just feeding into your own. Yeah.
Yes. So small wins.
Yes.
Bring investments.
Yeah.
Recognize what a win is.
I love it.
And sometimes it tastes
and what it
like a
feels
loss.
like.
Yeah.
You know what it really feels like to win. And
having a peaceful home goes a long way. You get a lot more out of life.
Now, again, we could do a whole nother podcast on martyrdom.
Yeah.
Trying to save the world and you becoming Mother Teresa.
Martyrdom. Yeah.
Martyrdom. What did I say? Martyrdom. Martyrdom.
Oh.
Yeah. And there's the real sick whole
I was the queen of that.
Yeah. Whole dynamic of that. Where, but I am saying there is that little, you got to get that flavor.
Yes. I love that.
Of what it means to actually win here.
Yeah. Small wins. Understand what those are. And then the last thing is, I think one of the things that's really helped us is identifying when we reach a compromise and being like, nice.
Yeah. There's a high five. Yeah.
We did it. We made a compromise. Here's the way we went into this. So we actually verbally acknowledge it. We made a compromise.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the outcome that we're now saying. We're both going to take each other at a word. We're both going to do this or that. And then it solidifies like, oh, we just came out with a common goal. Again, solidarity happens.
I love it. Yeah. You have that thing of, and I preach this all the time to myself and to my kids and stuff. It's like, man, rehearse the things that you really like about your life.
Yes.
Keep saying like, man, I have a really beautiful life, and these are the things I really like about my life, because it's so easy to be hard on yourself. It's so easy to just like downplay everything that you've accomplished. Everybody does it, right? And one of the coolest sort of spiritual thoughts that I've come to lately is I have everything that I need right now to create a moment of happiness.
I love that.
Yeah. Nothing can take that from me.
Yeah.
I have everything in the universe and everything at my disposal right now to create a moment of happiness, whether that is bringing up an old memory, whether that is, on and on.
Yeah.
You can be happy.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I love it.
Anyway.
So rehearse that stuff.
Yeah. Rehearse those outcomes.
Acknowledge when you've had a good compromise. Acknowledge when you've negotiated well. Acknowledge when you're both getting what you want.
High five over a really good win.
Goal. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay.
So that's all about how to get what you want when you're dealing with your partner.
I love it, babe.
Yeah. Good job.
High five.
High five.
Wait, babe. Babe, wait. How do we end this?
By saying thank you.
Okay. You guys are awesome. Thank you. There's nothing more encouraging than you hitting that like button and commenting.
And don't forget to subscribe.
And I know there's more. You have a list. Might as well go down the list.
Right. Okay. Watch the video of this podcast on our Beautiful Step YouTube channel or on our website, where you can actually download transcripts and show notes of the episode. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
If today's episode made your together even better, tell someone.
Okay. Now.
Right now.
Today.
Okay.
You can take one step.
It's just one step.
Toward the beautiful relationship you want in your life.
You got this.